Number one, we have to be careful when talking about tech because we have social media tech, i.e., Google, Facebook, etc. Right? But to my mind, that isn't the real kind of tech that's important. Because ultimately, tech should drive jobs. Manufacturing should, as much as I hate it, weapon systems or whatever. But people need jobs, whatever. And basically, we're talking about political tech or social media tech, and sometimes I think it distracts from the whole point of the jobs. The other thing is the CEOs that people promote as being Indian, they're basically brought in at a point because someone like Google, they're now in a firm monopoly position, right? They're virtually impossible to unseat. So at that point, then what you do is you move towards more profit rent seeking, as it were. And so you don't need actually innovation. Like Google, if you look at it, they're not really innovating. They have Google Cloud, which is shit compared to Amazon, etc. So, and by the way, Amazon built its tech based on American engineers, not Indians, and it's the same with Amazon Cloud. So when people make this argument, oh, all these guys are Indians, it's a fallacious thing. It's a deliberate corporate thing to rent seek lower costs and increase profits. Because at this point, because of their de facto monopoly position, they don't actually need innovation. So, and I hate when people talk about that argument. Those social media companies were built by Americans and American thinking, and now we're just moving to a different phase. If you look at India from a technology point of view, like in telco, all they ever do is cheaper Me Too shit. There's no real innovation, for example, with Indian. They have large companies, and they'll sell telcos a cheap SMSC that does 80% of what an American company would do, but it's 50% cheaper. So they're just bastardizing the whole industry through less capability,
Yeah,
less quality, and cheaper
yeah.
prices.
Thanks, bro. I was in the tech sector for some 20 years. Started off as a coder, and then my last position was a business IT executive. I was a consultant for IBM and worked for numerous Fortune 100 companies as a consultant, traveled around across 25 different countries, including India. So people don't know this, but they throw out these lame numbers that oh, it's only 150,000 each year. This is bullshit. This is not wrong. This is wrong. I'm referring to the H-1B visas. In the past 20 years, not including 2024, there were 6.1 million people who came through the H-1B visa, right? And if you include family members that they bring in, and then subsequently sponsorships, that quadruples or uh, quadruples. So if this persists, if this continues, it creates a major change and it comes at an expense to the average American in numerous ways, right? Regarding the H-1B visa, there are multiple issues with it. It's being gamed, it's being abused, and there's plenty of fraud in it. I used to be, as I mentioned, when I was at IBM, I consulted for a company called AMD. They made chips. This was years ago. And there was an SAP implementation that they had. And one of the guys who was brought in to lead the project, this really nice Indian guy. I got to know him. It was a separate project. I was working on a different project, leading another project. He's a really nice guy, and people, for whatever reason, people open up to me. I had a good relationship with everybody there. And for some 2, 3 months, he was on the project, going in and out of meetings. And one day, he basically pulled me aside and he said, I need to confess something to you." So he pulled me into a meeting room and he started crying. He's like, "Look, I don't know shit. The people who sent me here faked my resume, and I don't know any of this stuff, and I don't know what to do. I've been going in and out of these meetings, and I'm clueless, and I don't say a word in these meetings. I don't know what to do. This project's going to fail." So fortunately, in that situation, I was able to go in and see the other project director and have a discussion with him to make sure that the project is not sabotaged, because that meant tens of millions of dollars of loss for IBM as a company, and the and AMD for that matter, if that had gone sour and if they had found out and it got leaked. So they managed it. Now I bring this to you as an example that there is a lot of fraud. One of the challenges is that any tech company, when the department is dominated or the company is dominated by one ethnicity, it's the root of all problems because there's nepotism, there's in-group preferences, there's helping out their villagers back home, and they think they're doing a good thing, right? Now, you think it's based on merit, it's not. They bring in subpar individuals because of nepotism and relationship because of the 80-20 rule. 20% of the people do all the work, 80% benefit, right? So there's plenty of fat margin that you can use to bring in people who are not really performing and, this basically give them a job. And that's a sad part of this abuse. Now, I don't want to single out Indians. I guarantee you, any ethnicity that dominates a company, this will happen. It's a natural phenomenon. Lastly, corporations, right? That's one scenario. Corporations love H-1B visa, right? Because you've got leverage over these people. They have to be with you for a number of years. And at the same time, these people will come in and work 100 hours a week, and they'll be in a room with three other people in a one-bedroom apartment. And I'm saying this because firsthand experience, right? And they will work crazy hours. They don't have any debt from their school, and it's disadvantageous for the average American to compete with somebody who comes in and is willing to work 100 hours and they don't have a life. Yet the average American who actually wants to live, they've paid taxes, they have a college debt, now has to compete with somebody who's putting in 100 hours a week. I was on another project at IBM. It was in upstate New York. I kid you not, I used to work hard myself, and I would leave the frickin' office at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. at times, and there would be a group of Indians who was just still there. They would go work till 1 a.m. So how do you compete with that? It's just not fair to the average American. And then as
Yeah,
far as merit, lad, this is my last point. I'm going to
yeah,
land
yeah.
with this. As far as merit, this is bullshit. The average IQ of India is 78, right? Whereas the US stands at 100. There are plenty of engineers and computer scientists in the US that the US produces, and only two-thirds of them find jobs. The other one-third has to go do whatever. Now, I say this because unfortunately, a lot of these corporations are not leveraging Americans, and it's coming at the expense of the average American. And we pay taxes into the system, right? My kid, your kid, it has to go ahead and actually compete in this world. And they're not competing against other Americans, they're competing against the world. So
Yeah.
you have to actually change the system to make sure that it's not disadvantageous to the average American, yet at the same time allow others. And my key point is to make sure that one way to eliminate fraud is that a company or a department should not be dominated by one ethnicity. If you do that, that's the recipe for all kinds of fraud, nepotism, abuse. I'll end with that. Thanks, bro.
I appreciate that. I'm going to end this space on this final note. There's just like a little thing. It's a little meme that's going around. It says so. Basically, the right splits into two factions: tech right and right. The tech right is that hey, we need H-1S1 visa people to do the jobs, and the right was like, no, you need to hire Americans. The tech right's right, but these guys are retarded. And then the right's like, well, you don't train us, and the tech right's like, you can't out train being retarded. Then while all this is learned, we really don't like Indians. And then Elon Musk's response is that pretty much sums it up. This was eye opening. I mean, he doesn't care about America, dude. He looks at it as a financial opportunity to make his money, and it's at the expense of hardworking Americans who do like the concept of a football game and, homecoming and, a lake house. I mean, it's just kind of what it's a given. But when you look at this country as a petri dish for your financial projects, and you somehow are hijacking what's considered the right, which the concept of the right is to, back up the institutions and to bring back a lot of things that we push up as very important and fundamental to why we love this country. You have Elon Musk. And it behooves everybody here who cares about everything, just start noticing it and start criticizing them, because that's, this is obvious for everybody.